The morning light filtered through the tall windows of the Manhattan office as Jeff Bezos straightened his tie. Just another Wall Street executive in a sea of suits. At 30, he had everything society told him to want: a corner office, a six-figure salary, and the respect that came with working at a prestigious hedge fund. But something felt hollow. That afternoon, as he scrolled through an industry report, one statistic leaped off the page like lightning. The internet was growing at 2,300% per year. His hands trembled as he read it again. 2,300%. The number burned into his consciousness, igniting something primal within him. That evening, Jeff sat across from his wife Mackenzie at their small dining table, the report still clutched in his hands. He whispered, his voice barely audible. "What if we're living the wrong life?" Mackenzie looked up from her manuscript. She was working on her first novel and saw something in her husband's eyes she'd never seen before. Fear mixed with desperate hope. "Tell me," she said softly, reaching across to touch his hand. "The internet is exploding. People are going to buy everything online someday. Books, electronics, groceries, everything. And we're just sitting here, watching it happen." His voice cracked. "I have an idea, Mac. A crazy, impossible idea." Mackenzie squeezed his hand tighter. "Then let's be crazy together." That night, they lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, both knowing their comfortable world was about to shatter. Jeff's mind raced with possibilities while Mackenzie's heart raced with love for this dreamer she'd married. Neither slept. Both knew tomorrow would be different. The awakening had begun. The resignation letter felt like a suicide note in Jeff's pocket as he walked through the hedge fund's marble lobby one final time. His boss had called him insane. "You're throwing away your future for what? Selling books on computers." But as Jeff cleaned out his desk, he felt lighter with each item he packed. Mackenzie appeared in the doorway, her eyes red from crying, not from sadness, but from pride. "Ready to change the world, Mr. Bezos." The cross-country drive was a pilgrimage of hope and terror. Mackenzie drove while Jeff scribbled business plans on napkins, his handwriting shaky with excitement and caffeine. They had $500 in savings, their Honda Accord, and a dream that felt simultaneously brilliant and ridiculous. "What if we fail?" Jeff asked, somewhere in Iowa, vulnerability cracking his voice. Mackenzie pulled over and turned to face him. "Then we fail together, but what if we don't?" They arrived in Bellevue, Washington, on a gray morning that felt like the edge of the world. The small garage Jeff had rented was cramped, cold, and perfect. As they set up the borrowed computer on a makeshift desk built from a door and 2 sawhorses, Mackenzie watched her husband transform before her eyes. Amazon.com, Jeff said, typing the domain name for the first time. Named after the world's largest river. On July 16, 1995, they uploaded their first book listing. Jeff's finger hovered over the publish button. Mackenzie stood behind him, her hands on his shoulders. Together, she whispered. He clicked. Amazon was born in that moment, not just a company, but a testament to love, faith, and the courage to leap into the unknown. The romance of entrepreneurship died quickly in the harsh light of reality. By October, Jeff's hands were permanently stained with ink and cut from cardboard. The garage smelled of packing tape and desperation. Mackenzie had taken over the finances. Her novelist's attention to detail now focused on spreadsheets that made her stomach churn. We sold 12 books today, she announced, trying to inject enthusiasm into her voice. Jeff looked up from where he knelt on the concrete floor, surrounded by boxes. 12, he repeated, wiping blood from a fresh paper cut. At this rate, we'll be millionaires by the year 3000. Some nights, Mackenzie would find him sitting in the dark garage at 2 a.m., staring at the computer screen, tears streaming down his face. What have I done to us? He'd whisper. She'd sit beside him on the cold floor, pulling him close. You've given us a chance to matter. The criticism was relentless. Former colleagues called him a has-been. Friends stopped returning calls. Mackenzie's parents worried she'd married a dreamer who'd lost his mind. But in quiet moments, when a customer email arrived praising their service, or when they celebrated shipping their 100th order with cheap champagne, they remembered why they'd started. Mackenzie became Jeff's anchor. When he worked 16-hour days, she'd bring him sandwiches and sit with him in comfortable silence. When he wanted to quit, she'd remind him of the statistic that started it all. When he felt like a failure, she'd show him the growing stack of orders. We're not just selling books, she told him one exhausting evening. We're selling the future. The grind was brutal, but it was theirs. Night. Every moment of doubt was building something beautiful, foundation strong, enough to hold their impossible dreams. The call came on a Tuesday morning in spring. 1996. A reporter from the Wall Street Journal wanted to write about this little bookstore in a garage. Jeff's hands shook as he hung up the phone. Mac, they want to write about us, he said, his voice barely a whisper. Mackenzie dropped her coffee mug. It shattered on the garage floor, but neither of them noticed. Article changed everything. Orders flooded in faster than they could process. The garage became a war zone of efficiency, with both of them working around the clock. Mackenzie had to hire their first employee, part-time college student, who looked terrified by their intensity. "We need to move," Jeff said one evening, looking around their cramped kingdom. The words felt like betrayal. Moving day was bittersweet. As they packed the last box, Mackenzie ran her hand along the garage wall where Jeff had written their first monthly sales target, $1,000 by Christmas. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked, "giving up the safe life?" Jeff pulled her close, looking around the empty garage that had been their world. "Every day I wake up terrified, but I've never felt more alive." The new warehouse was sterile compared to their garage, but it represented something profound: growth, possibility. The first real proof that their crazy idea might work. That night, in their new space, they celebrated with pizza and beer. Amazon had gone from a garage startup to a real company with real employees and real potential. "What's next?" Mackenzie asked. Jeff's eyes sparkled with the same fire from that first night. "Everything. We're going to sell everything." The breakthrough was complete. The garage had done its job. 25 years later, Jeff Bezos stood in the same Bellevue neighborhood, now transformed by the company he'd built. The small garage had been replaced by a luxury home, but he could still feel the ghost of those early days. Amazon was no longer just a bookstore, it was everything. Cloud, computing, streaming, groceries, space exploration. The $500 startup had become a $1 trillion empire, and Jeff had become one of the richest people in history. But success hadn't come without sacrifice. The pressures of building an empire had strained his marriage to Mackenzie. Though they'd eventually divorced, she remained his closest friend and the person who'd believed in him when believing seemed impossible. "Do you remember our first sale?" Mackenzie asked, joining him outside the old garage location. They'd met here to celebrate Amazon's 25th anniversary, returning to where it all began. Fluid concepts and creative analogies. Jeff replied immediately. $12.95. I was so nervous, I triple-checked the address. They stood in comfortable silence. Two middle-aged entrepreneurs, remembering when they were young and desperate and foolish enough to believe they could change the world. "We did it," Mackenzie said softly. "We did," Jeff agreed. The garage was gone, but its spirit lived on in every entrepreneur who'd heard their story. In every dreamer who'd quit their safe job to chase an impossible idea. In every couple who'd chosen love and risk over security and comfort. Jeff's phone buzzed with notifications, stock prices, meeting requests, the endless demands of running an empire. But for this moment, he ignored them all. The boy who'd started with $500 and a dream had become a man who'd proven that in America, in the right garage with the right person beside you. anything was possible. The revolution was complete. The legacy was just beginning.